Okay, so today I want to talk about a specific thing. Um, Two examples. And I'm going to start off with this. Today, if I was to build a home, I would actually just skip gas service and hot water plumbing. And you may say, you may actually not know that you can do that. You may say, what do you mean? You're not going to have hot water in your house? No, you're going to have hot water. You're just not going to have hot water plumbing. Um, you are going to heat the water directly in the bathroom. And for someone that has never seen that before, it may surprise you. But I am going to explain to you right now why this is going to be the future. And why this is going to be the future is the same reason why electrification of transport became a thing. Because it's not electric cars that's the biggest example of electrification of transport. I would say that the biggest example of electrification of transport is actually trains. And here's the thing. Electric drivetrain are more efficient than combustion ones. Combustion drivetrains inherently create a lot of heat. And by creating a lot of heat, you waste a lot of the energy because if you heat something, you're not using that energy to move it. So on this example specifically, what happened with trains was locomotives before were powered by steam, and then slowly they were started to be powered by diesel drivetrains, but almost immediately got tied together with diesel electric. And diesel electric meant that you had an electric generator inside a train, but it was really just a generator for an electric drivetrain, because the electric drivetrain is much more efficient at powering movement. And the reason why this, and then after the diesel electric locomotive, we just completely passed it into electric locomotives, which is most of the subway passenger rail service today. The reason why this happened is because it made more economical sense to have an electric locomotive, because the lower overhead and maintenance that you have, than running thousands of diesel motors. And the fuel too, that's a very big cost on some applications. Now, with electric cars, the same thing is happening, but you don't get to see the end result only. Very old people are going to remember when diesel electric and the transition to just electric happened. And they're going to remember that it was a big debate, because at the beginning it was really not more cost effective. It's with time it became more cost effective, and slowly it got phased out. For young people like me, that is a very alien idea. We don't really see things. Well, we have seen them. It's just we didn't really think about the economics of why it happened. Most economics we are learning just right now after we leave school. But with electric cars, that is reason. Electric cars are not really gonna be more. Combustion cars are not gonna be really phased out because emissions and because of a greener, safer planet. In reality, electric cars, the main reason they're gonna get transitioned and really fast is because they actually make more economic sense. You're kind of seeing that turn into fruition now, because the last 2 years, getting a car has been insane. And yet, specifically, getting a Tesla has not been insane. And if you go to China or Korea, getting an electric car is really, really not insane. And getting a gas car, it's a little bit, depending on the brand, but some brands, it's really expensive. So it is starting to make economic sense to actually just purchase an electric vehicle. If you have the capital to buy a new car, really it is more cost effective to buy an electric one. And that we're seeing right now. With houses, going back to the example of housing and heating and cooling and water and everything like that on houses, the technology to skip gas boilers and the technology to skip gas heating has been around probably for more than 15 years. But it actually has never made sense to switch. On small pockets, like on the rail industry, on small pockets, it has somewhat made sense to use one or the other. But it really is not on a mass scale residential application. It is more on really specific stuff. For example, if you install solar panels and you had the space for solar water heating, you could use that, but you still needed a boiler on some occasions. Equally, if you had a complete full installation of air conditioner and you were savvy enough to buy a reversible AC service, AC compressor or AC unit they call it, then you could actually skip a gas heater at the expense of more expensive equipment. And the reason why some people did it is because you could save on gas costs. And on some places, for example, on places where there was no gas piping and you had to refuel or have a massive gas tank on the roof of your house, sometimes it actually made sense to just not do it, to use the gas only for water heating and cooking, and heating leave it to the electrical service, which you didn't need it to refuel. But now it is very different, because the same as batteries on electric vehicles, electrical appliances have been getting quite cheap, and gas appliances have slowly just kept up with inflation, which means they have been getting more expensive. So if you make a house today, for example, in New York, they actually prohibited for new construction, especially on apartments, I think, that you can have electric cookers inside. You cannot have them anymore. You have to have electrical cookers. Water heating, though, it is still gas, if I am remembering correctly. But here's the thing. It is still not economical per se. Like, you cannot say confidently that it is cheaper to skip gas service on a house. Mainly, though, not because of the material cost, but because of the labor cost of having a contractor do everything electric. That is still quite expensive because there is just not enough contractors doing it. But eventually stuff is gonna get worked out, and the theory is, like, the physics, the fundamentals are there. Electric heating on a house and electrifying your house basically is just more cost effective than having two separate services. And that eventually, slowly, it is going to turn into fruition. The question is when. The question of when, it's always when it's more cost effective than the competition. Now, on cars, it is going to happen really fast because both the competition became more expensive and the supply became way cheaper for the electrical products. On housing stuff, the fuel cost for the heating became more expensive, but electrical bills became more expensive too, so that was negated. And although electrical equipment like electric boilers and AC units have become a little bit more cheaper compared to like 15 years ago, it really hasn't been that much of a difference. They're still very expensive. And gas appliances have not had like an immense price surge like with combustion cars. Really, they mostly just have kept up with inflation. There was a small supply shortage for a while, but that really has ended. Like, you can get some appliance if you want today, really, without no problem. You just may have to wait a little bit. But yeah, that's the thought I wanted to give out a little bit. Why the future of housing is electrical, and why is that convenient for every one of us? Because it's just cheaper. And the similar example that has happened before. It has happened before with locomotives. It has happened kind of right now with electric cars. And that is really just a lesson from economics. You don't really need to get into the understanding of how an electric car works. You just have to understand this. It is really cheaper to own and operate an electric appliance. Gas combustion is less efficient. There's just no other way to put it. The biggest problem with electricity is how do you generate electricity, especially at scale and on an unusable way. But the thing is this, the electrical grid, it's already here. We don't need to do anything to the electrical grid. No new technology or new invention has to be made to use electricity. It's already here, and it's been here for a long time. The only difference is that you're using it for more of something else. And that is the biggest cost of electricity, is just having a grid is the biggest cost. But since that's been solved, using it on some appliance is extremely cheap. There's really, the metal cost is like the biggest cost on that. Electricity is cheap, and the transportation of the electricity, let's say from your house connection to your appliance or to your car, is like non-existent. A cable, a $200 cable on a $50,000 car, it's nothing. Like, it's irrelevant. And that's the main reason why. It's just, that's why stuff is changing right now and so fast. And I cannot wait for housing, for the housing side, because I truly am fascinated about the chemistry and the engineering of air conditioning, of climate control with gas, which is really cool. Maybe in the future I'm gonna do a little video going into detail of how an air conditioner works and how a heat pump, how an air conditioner works is really just the main thing. But yeah, for now, that's it. That's the only thought I wanted to give out. It's just, air conditioners are not expensive, especially when you compare it to gas. It used to be on the past, but on the real past right now, no, it just makes no sense to use gas services. Electrical is the way.